Mr. Speaker, we're just 2 months in to this Congress, and yet we have already seen one favor after another to big oil from our friends across the aisle. They just can't get enough, and so we are back here once again giving another favor to big oil, and one gets the feeling that they're just warming up, that this is going to be a recurring theme in this Congress. Meanwhile, we are 1 week away from a government shutdown. We are on the heels of what we know is a Republican plan to gut Medicaid to pay for tax cuts for billionaires. But today, are they talking about any of those things? No. They have brought us here to talk about repealing a minor rule that simply protects marine archaeological resources. And if that sounds ridiculous to you, it's because it is. This bill targets a rule from the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, which is the agency that regulates offshore energy development in federal waters. The rule says that underwater surveys that these companies already conduct before they drill simply have to meet some basic consistent standards. Wow, the heavy hand of government. Republicans have argued that this is simply too burdensome for their friends in big oil. And yet the rule doesn't even require companies to conduct any new surveys. Companies already do these surveys. The rule simply states that future surveys need to adhere to minimum standards to be used for archaeological reports. And no matter how you slice it, this rule will not cause a substantial financial burden to operators. It just ensures that the data companies collect can be used to look for things like shipwrecks and other historically important objects. The chairman said in his opening remarks that he doesn't like the fact that they need to look for these things in areas where they are not known to exist. Well, that's kind of the whole point. If you haven't looked for them, if you're not going to look for them while you're already there doing a survey, we may never know that things actually exist in some areas. Without these surveys, operators might not discover these archaeological resources until they go to drill. And here's what happens when they find them at that point. It forces costly delays for their friends in the oil industry. Because regardless of whether you do this survey work beforehand, companies still have to comply with laws that protect shipwrecks and mitigate impacts to sites that were once above water and home to indigenous peoples. The rule actually promotes efficiency, something Republicans say that they care a lot about. It prevents delays and extra costs for good actors who report unexpected finds as they're required to do under the law, and it keeps bad actors from just quietly working and hoping no one notices, something that's much easier to get away with if you're not required to do those studies in the first place. So why do Republicans want to roll this rule back? Well, for one, my guess is Republicans saw that it was a Biden regulation on offshore oil and gas. If Biden did it, it must be bad. They want to pick a fight with anything that they perceive to be a threat to big oil, even a minor rule that actually helps the industry avoid unexpected cost. But the second reason, very likely reason that we are here, is that they're looking for ways to kill time. They need some pretext to chew up some floor time here in the Congress to distract the public. This resolution does that, and it allows Republicans to keep working behind the scenes on their plan to find tax giveaways for their billionaire friends, working behind the scenes on their plan that we know is coming to cut Medicaid and SNAP deeply, hurting working families all over this country. They voted on the framework for that last week. They're still squabbling with the Senate over the details and what comes next. But clearly, we're not doing work this week to fund the government or to stop Trump's new tax on energy. He calls it a tariff. Or standing up to self-dealing billionaires who are taking a sledgehammer to our federal government, or dealing with their illegal firing of workers and constituents of many of us, and causing complete chaos across the country. No, instead of holding this administration accountable for all of that, House Republicans are urgently tinkering, trying to create the appearance that they're busy doing something here in the Congress on a minor rule that simply requires scientific standards for underwater surveys. They don't want people to remember that they voted just last week to set in motion devastating cuts to Medicaid and SNAP. Or that a few days ago, Elon Musk said that Social Security is a Ponzi scheme, and yet the other night, my Republican friends stood and applauded for him like he was Elvis Presley. Or that the Trump administration has announced plans to cut staffing at the Social Security Administration in half, in fact, guaranteeing that services for seniors will suffer. Or that the Trump Secretary of Agriculture just went on television and told Americans who are struggling with food prices to get a chicken. That's why House Republicans want to talk about something else. That's why we are here to debate and vote on this rule. I oppose this farcical resolution and the theater that it represents, and I reserve the balance of